Okay.
Jim Parsons, we know the Tony Awards were just last week, and you've been in that arena before, starring in The Normal Heart on stage, and now you're playing that role in the HBO mini television movie adaptation.
Right.
What was the experience like, between one and the other? Was it a different experience?
It was a very different experience. I mean, for one thing, the logistics of it, obviously, with doing the play over and over, the same story every night, it's just a very different pattern. But the version of the play we did, that George Wolfe directed, it was very unrealistic as far as like the settings and the props and things went. And it was very interesting to spend so much time with the same material in that very unrealistic surrounding, and then to go to a movie where, because of the nature of movies, or most of them at least, everything was extremely realistic. If there was a phone in the scene, there was a phone in the scene. If there was whatever, any furniture, any surrounding, the one in particular that was actually a new scene in the movie for me, but was at the funeral. And it was so interesting to be in a church with the coffin and everybody, including me, dressed for a funeral. And I don't know that it makes things easier, but it does a certain amount of work for you, I think, and that was different. I won't say that it was easier, but it was different. The intensity, though, with which it felt to be a part of it, and the intensity with the connection I felt towards other actors, was surprisingly similar to the play. And I kind of thought that would wane or be a little less intense, only because it wasn't every night over and over. You'd work a couple of days and you'd have a week off maybe. But I knew it most acutely once we started doing press for the Normal Heart for HBO, and I saw cast members I hadn't seen in a few months, and just the passion with which I felt upon seeing them again. I was like, oh, we really made a connection by going through this material together. So that was very similar. But they were both really pinnacle experiences for me, both the play and the HBO version. I didn't see them coming in my career, and in both times it really kind of floored me with happiness, and it was just really fulfilling.
Now that that has aired on HBO and people are watching it on their phones and their iPads and all, they've had almost a month to watch it. What has been
Mhm.
the reaction?
In general, it's just been tremendous, a tremendous positive wave of people so grateful the movie was made, so pleased with the performances and the work that Ryan Murphy did, and the adaptation that Larry made. Uh, and I guess related to that was, it's been a very different experience doing press and doing interviews and stuff for material like this and a project like this, as opposed to what I'm used to, which is obviously for the TV show, which, in addition to being a comedy, is an ongoing thing, and I don't know, just a real familiarity with it. And I don't know exactly what words to use. There's certainly a gravity involved in a lot of the press I've been doing for it that's been a refreshing change of pace. Not that people don't take the TV show seriously, but just, I guess, just the topic at hand, with Normal Heart and the way it affects a lot of people when they see it, they just approach it differently. And that has been, for me at least as an actor, what's funny is, being a part of the Normal Heart was of course a different experience than being on the TV show, but it's just another acting job in a lot of ways, and I approach it in very similar ways that I would the television show of, taking it seriously. It's really been in the aftermath of it, in press and in people's reactions, that's been what's so different, drastically different from my experience with the TV show. And again, though, such a pleasure. It's just been, it's really special to be a part of something that a lot of people come up to you and tell you how much it meant to them to see it, and how meaningful it was for them that it came on the air at all.
Your character in The Normal Heart, Tommy, is a bit fleshed out, a bit more fleshed out in the film as opposed to on stage. Yeah, as
Yeah.
you said, you mentioned the eulogy scene, and you have a few other new scenes also. Did you feel like you
Right.
got to know the character a lot better playing him for the film now?
Uh, yes, and part of that was just a deepening of work that I had done. It was 2011, I guess, when I did the stage play. So there's this weird amount of time that, they always say when you want to study something or learn something, and this goes for memorizing lines too, like work on it at night and then sleep on it, and it's amazing what your mind does. In a much grander sense, I kind of had a similar, or it felt like I had a similar experience playing this character, was that I played it for those night after night for a few months, and then for a couple of years I didn't really touch it. And to go back to some of those scenes and some of those lines, it just felt such a second nature. On many levels, at least, it felt a second nature, like you're always that kind of thing you're striving for when you work on a part. But this was just the gift of time, and there's really no replicating that. But what was good was that the eulogy scene was not only added, but it was kind of a different side of Tommy than any other scene in the play is. There's a lot of capitulating and trying to make people get along that he does in his scenes, and it's one of my favorite things about playing him is that he's a bit of a peacekeeper, but he's also trying to keep the job going and the help going. And in that scene, there was a real, I looked at it as kind of a real throwing up of his hands and saying, forget it. For now, at least, I'm angry. I don't have any answers, and the answers I think I do have are very unpleasant, and I don't know how to deal with this, and I'm not here to make this an easier thing to digest for any of you. And to me, that was a very powerful choice they made, to have a character who he did care about making people feel better, etc., etc. It was very powerful to have that character say, "Not interested right now. This is too bad to make pretty in any way, and goodbye." For that moment.
We're awards focused here, and Daniel and I are both thinking along the same lines, and that is the last time this supporting category was so dominated, which it could be from your movie, supporting actor in a movie miniseries, was Angels in America. They took almost every slot in the category.
Is that right?
Could happen here again. What would that mean for you? You're always competing on the comedy side, to be in a more dramatic, movie category.
Well, I guess on a more surface personal level, it'd be a real honor, and a real pleasant surprise to have the chance to be recognized in two such divergent projects as far as the tone of work or whatever goes. Specifically for the project, again, I felt such a fondness for not just all the people, but the project in general, that would be really moving to have a couple or a few slots in one category like that. I saw Angels when it was on HBO, and it was tremendous. So that's the kind of thing it's like, well, that makes sense that a lot of nominations were given to that. The performances, there were so many wonderful performances. So it's hard to judge something you're in objectively, certainly yourself, but even the other people involved. So for what it's worth, if that would to happen for this, it would be uplifting. And it's the biggest thing for me is it's been such a pleasure, again, promoting this and hoping more eyeballs get to see it in general. And anytime the awards hopefully extend the life of a project or whatever, it's always very special, and it would be even more so this time than maybe normal.
Now, as Chris mentioned, it's such a deep field of actors in this film and of characters to play in this story. Tefani in our chat room is curious, if you could have chosen any other character to play in The Normal Heart, who would you have picked and why?
I really like the character that Joe Mantello plays, Mickey, and I mean this in all due respect to Joe Mantello. I'm not quite old enough to play him yet, especially in context with the other characters. He needs to have been of a certain age to have taken part in a certain amount of gay rights events or whatever that had happened that like a character like Tommy wasn't around for. He was too young. But I love the, he's trying to look at it through a medical bent. He writes a column on health, and his whole take on what's going on, the AIDS crisis, and what is this and what's happening, it really culminates in that there's that major scene he has where he basically says he was going to go jump off. He does say he was going to go jump off the Empire State Building. He's really at the end of his rope in the truest sense of the phrase. And the things he rattles off there are so moving and so it's so frightening to think that that was a mindset going on then. Is the government out to kill us? Is there a secret order at work here? And just the way he articulates, there's this part in particular where he's like, I mean, it just shows how little they knew at the time, where he's like, is monogamy the culprit? Are the people who had more sexual partners, have they built up an immunity to it? Have those of us who have stuck with one person through this process, have we made ourselves weaker to it? So once we're exposed to it, it's going to take us like that. And there's, it's just a beautiful part, I think, where he shows a very sensible, intelligent person has descended into madness, and rightfully so, because of what's going on and the way it's being treated and the lack of answers for what's going on. So I find that role very appealing. Yeah.
That's a killer scene, too.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, there's no easy transition to comedy, but let's talk comedy a little bit. That's your day job.
Yes.
You won a 3rd Emmy last September. That ties you with Don Adams, John Lithgow, Tony Shalhoub. Only 3 men have ever won 4. If you get a 4th one this August, you will be in a tie for the all-time record for this category. You know who the other 3 men are?
Is it Michael J. Fox?
Yep.
Is it Carol O'Connor?
Yep.
Is there another one?
Kelsey Grammer.
Oh, darn it! I should have known that. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
You'll have to thank all 3 of them when you're on stage. What would that mean to you to tie that record?
Well, I'm still astounded that a 3rd one happened. Look, there's part of me that's astounded that a 1st one ever happened. I've said this from the beginning when dealing with these award shows. It's like, as a child and anybody who saw award shows or whatever, I just never. There was never any way to wrap your head around. I can't wait till maybe one day I'm at I don't know. And it's been such a wonderful. It's such a wonderful part of the journey with this TV show, and this would be a wonderful journey if we never got to go to the Emmys. You know what I mean? It's just been because the show's been successful and people really enjoy it or whatever. But the added perk, I guess you'd say, of getting to go to this celebration of television in general, and maybe you and maybe the show in specific while you're there, it's really hard to put words to. I've tried in many interviews, and I really can't. So. Look, I really don't know what to say. It would be a hell of a night if that happened. I will say that. I would be gobsmacked.
Well, I guess more than anything, we just want you to know that especially for those of us that really follow this, I mean, the weight of that moment really ought to sink in if that happens. That's a huge thing that would happen.
I promise if I were fortunate enough to have that happen, I promise I will think of it. And try to say something meaningful and not trip on my own shoes. I don't know. That seems to be the hardest thing about those.
Yours wasn't the only significant Emmy win for The Big Bang Theory last year. You also earned Bob Newhart his first ever Emmy in his career. So I guess really he should have been working with you all along, shouldn't he?
Yes, that's the lesson that he should take from this. That was the most emotional. I'll never forget, and because I was like, get it together. When I came out there to, honestly, I don't even remember what award we presented together. I think directing for comedy special. Anyway, but being out there with him and the audience having the chance, because he wanted the one that takes place a few nights before or a week before. And so this was the first chance in front of the whole primetime audience he'd had to acknowledge his win. It was when they were all standing up, they were all clapping, he began to cry, and I felt myself begin to cry. I thought, this is not your moment. You need to back off and let Bob do his thing. But it was really special, and it's been, I've said this before too, but he was the one person of all the wonderful actors we've had on our show as guest stars, he was the one person that came on that I just could not believe he was standing there. I guess it's just that he's been on TV my whole life, whether in reruns or in prime time, and so he holds a place in my subconscious or whatever that I finally understood that feeling that you sometimes see in other people where you're like, I can't believe you exist. I can't. You're standing here, and you know, I won't say I've gotten over that, but I've gotten better about talking to him. But at first it was hard. I want to say something stupid. Normally I really don't think that way when I'm on my own set, you know. But with him, he's more than an icon. He's one of the pillars of our television history.
Well, listen, all credit to you too for the announcer did not say this was his first win in his career, and people in the industry don't necessarily know that. You brought it up, and you caused them to stand up.
Oh, well, somebody helped write that. That was banter, so you know. But oh, good. I'm glad.
I chased after him for months last year to do an interview, and then after the nominations, like mid-July, he did one with me, and that was one of the thrills of my life to talk with him for about half an hour.
Oh, I'm sure it was. And isn't he wonderful to talk to? I mean, he's so game, you know. That's the other thing that, you know, and I find this is true in this industry a lot. A lot of really the greats or whatever, when you have the chance to run into them, it's intimidating. And then the more you are able to work with them and deal with them, you realize they're as organically present as anybody you could ever want to be, and I think therein lies the greatness of them. You know, you expect a certain person like that to maybe be, maybe not aloof, but like, I won't understand what they're talking about, or this will be awkward, and the more you deal with them, you realize they're more down to earth than a lot of more ordinary people I deal with, and again, I think that's part of what makes them special.
Now, the episode where his character dies this season, are you thinking about that one possibly as your episode submission? You got to have some good grief scenes, or are you thinking about something else?
I haven't thought about anything yet. I mean, part of me would be superstitious and going, you know, you're not nominated yet. And the other thing, though, is it's really, you know, I felt this way last year when I was fortunate enough to have the problem of having to pick one. 6 years in, 7 years in, I really can't tell you what a blur it becomes, having swimming in it, you know, because you're actually doing it. You bring that up, and I think, oh yeah, that's worth looking at. I really can't tell you off the top of my head what I would be like. I remember last year, and here's what's worth looking at. I really don't know. Also, we've had such wonderful other characters introduced that have been fleshed out, and a lot of times it's, you know, it was somewhat easier earlier on when there were fewer of us, because it would be like, well, this was the episode where I yada yada, and frequently now it's like, this is the episode where I did this, and oh, there was that other good storyline in there like that, and then you look at it and go, is this enough of my character? And it's such a weird. It's a weird process trying to pick an episode. As you know, I mean, y'all go on and scold people all the time for going, what are you thinking? And rightfully so. But it's a minefield, and some people don't pick their own. I don't know if you ever talked to Mayim, but I don't think Mayim picks her own. I think she has like Bill Prady or Steve Malaro, and she says, what would you pick? And that's probably pretty smart. I mean, you know, take somebody else's outside point of view. I've always taken full control of mine, though, for better or worse.
Well, it's been a lot better than most. 3 wins. Yeah,
no, you're right. It's been a very fortunate picking.
You're one of the best. I mean, we look over everybody. We watch every single submission, and yeah. Even on the years you didn't win, I mean, you're one of the best submitters that we've seen.
Oh, thank you. Look, if I can do nothing else right in my life, I can submit. I'll be damned.
Now, one of the interesting things about that episode Chris mentioned where Professor Proton passed away is that we get to see sort of a side of Sheldon dealing with mourning and grief, and he's a character who sort of struggles with emotions and personal connections in general. So what was it like playing him in, you know, trying to figure out the mourning process?
Very rewarding, I have to be honest with you. As soon as you bring it up, it reminds me of a lot of the scenes they've given me to play with Mayim, the Amy and Sheldon stuff. You know, I've been a part of it, obviously, and working on this character, but, you know, all the scenes ever have always been, you know, written by the writers, and they're all their ideas. And so I've always given credit to them, but in the past couple of seasons especially, I've realized what wonderful groundwork they've laid for us and for an actor, for me. You know, they were never shy about definitively defining this character in what he was and in fleshing out those definitions. And because of that, when you get an episode like the one with Bob when you're dealing with death, or you get one where things go a little further in a relationship, like with the stuff with Amy Farrah Fowler. It's just really, it's just a pleasure, because they've made you a part of this pool of this really really dictated storyline, and you feel you have this really strong foundation of I know who this guy is, I think, and so whatever choices kind of organically come to me of how to deal with certain things with that, I tend to pretty much trust it, because they've really schooled me in who he is. And I guess too, to credit to their writing too, I've always felt, at least, what they've given me to do as Sheldon, including, like, the actions in the scene with Bob dying, with Proton dying, was they're very clear. Like I think of course where Sheldon hugs Leonard when he comes home, and it's such a simple thing. And it was so clear in the script, and it tells, for me at least, I feel like it tells any actor multitudes of what you need to know. Whatever else happens in this episode, take it as it comes, but it leads to this. It's very moving to this character in this episode. It's it's an evolving. There's something that strongly hits him in the heart. So, boy, I can just ramble on with one sentence, can't I?
We like that. We like that. Well, another one of the funniest ones this year, I don't know about a submission or whatever, but you may be helping another guest star win if Bob doesn't win again, and that's James Earl Jones. I didn't expect that performance from him at all, and boy, that was funny.
Oh, what a tremendous week that was. That I will never forget that as long as I live. Him being on that set and working with him in those scenes every day, and such intimate, small little scenes with him. I mean, it was literally like being in kind of a little black hole with James Earl Jones the whole week, and it was a pleasure to do so. He's just, I don't know. I tend to, I knew him, of course, as the voice of Darth Vader long before I knew how much theater he had done in his life, how early he had started that, and how, well, not early, but actually pretty late he was an adult when he was really getting into it, but how much he worked in that and worked his way into his career. And I think that all plays off of him when you see him. He's just so full of this life and this sensibility, and so to the point where it's just, second nature to be at home with an audience, and the timing of it, and where the camera, it just he's just doing everything instinctually. And but for him to be in that body and with that voice, such jolly happiness through that episode, and so game to just throw on a towel for the last scene. God bless him. I was much more than he was.
And Marina in our chat room wants to know if you have a wish list for Sheldon in season 8.
Not specific. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's always hard for me to wish, because, again, going back to the writers, they've always done such a good job of taking the character in places that I'm like, oh wow, I didn't see that coming, and they do it so well that I could never think of anything that was better or whatever. The only thing that I've said, it's been about 2 years in a row I've said it, is I've enjoyed the ongoing relationship that me and Mayim get to play out so much. And I love the pace at which they're taking it. And real changes have happened with those characters, but it doesn't feel like the foot was ever pounded on the accelerator. I never feel like we're in a situation where viewers are going to say, what? It just all feels, and I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they gauge the speed and what events should happen and things like that, and they don't tell me, and I don't ask. Don't pull back the curtain. But it's just been, like I said about the Bob episode, those scenes between those characters have been such a pleasure, and there's such a wonderful, quiet tension in the air when we do some of those scenes in front of the audience on tape nights, and that's really, in any live theater-ish type thing, that's really what you're going. I mean, a nice laugh is good too, but that quiet tension where everybody's just going, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? That's my favorite thing in the world, and we've been lucky enough to have a few of those past couple of years.
One last question. We know we've overextended our time with you already. Although we could talk to you all day. We had like 4 pages of questions here, and then we had hundreds of people in the forums wanting to ask questions. But last summer you joined us for a chat, and I asked you why you'd never hosted Saturday Night Live before, and you said, I don't know, and you looked right in the camera, and you said, if you're watching, I'll do it. Just invite
Did I
me.
really?
And now we want to take credit for that. You got invited this last year.
You probably should. I mean, I literally don't even remember doing that. You allowed me a platform to make an appeal, and let me make another appeal right now. Please bring me back. I cannot explain to you how much fun that was. I felt so young, and so because I was so excited, and this is like on tape night. I was so excited, and I was having so much fun. My stomach was in such knots. It was literally like being 15 and about to do a high school play again, where you're like, people are going to think I'm stupid, or this could go horrible, but a part of you didn't care because it was like, I have to do this. This is so wonderful, and it's such a great environment. I was very surprised because I was like, oh my God, have y'all ever asked so and so to do it? And there were several people. They'd be like, yeah, they don't want to do it, and I was like, who wouldn't do this? Which that's a little naive. I can see it's scary. It is scary, but they are their own best safety net, and the whole thing, the whole experience is so fun. Quality aside, like I couldn't gauge the quality of every scene I was in or whatever. It was just like whatever. I hope they're good, and I hope people like them, but it was a bit of a camp experience for me, for the host. I think that it's a hell of a rigorous schedule for the people who are actually employed on that show. But they keep smiling through it. It's an amazing feat.
I had Conan O'Brien on a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him why he only hosted once. He, all those years he was right there in the same building.
Yeah.
And he said, it was such a great experience, and everything went so well. I didn't want to come back and ruin it with a second.
There's that, but I am nothing if not an addictive personality. So I'll grind that crap into the ground before, just drag that horse through the mud. I can't stop myself. There's very few things I go, that was perfect, goodbye. No, I come back for more until it deadens me.
Well, Jim, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Good luck. You'll probably be a double nominee this year at the Emmys.
Oh, that's very sweet of you to say. That would be a fun evening for sure.
And if you get up on that stage for Big Bang, just remember you're making history.
It won't slip my mind, I promise you.
Listen, have a great summer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You too.